Yeah, it works. Morning, everyone. Welcome to CakeFest 2016. How are you feeling? Yay. So, welcome to the workshop. I'm happy so many people are here today. As the previous years, the workshops are split into beginner and advanced. The morning will be beginners, and the afternoon will be advanced. Beginners is driven by Jorge, and advanced is driven by me. How many people would like to follow step by step I wouldn't say beginner, but the more basic workshop? So raise your hands. Okay, most here. That's good. For the people who don't want to follow during the morning, I suggest you connect to the Slack channel in KPHP. You can find the link in the homepage. If you don't have Slack, you can connect through IRC. It's the same. We're gonna work on a new plugin for KPHP. That would be our assignment during the mornings. So that's it. Hope you enjoy it and have a lot of questions and you learn a lot. So I'll leave you with Jorge.
Okay. Hear me okay? Good. Welcome. So my name is Jorge Gonzalez. I've been running the Cake Software Foundation training for a couple years. So I don't know if anyone here took any of the training sessions there. No? Oh, you? Hey, you already know me. So for the rest, the objective with the workshops is having 2 sessions, 3 hours in the morning. I will be covering basically all the stack, all the MVC stack, going through examples on the model, the view, controller. Today we're going to build a plugin as well. It's going to be a newsletter plugin, so you can spam all the world. And the idea behind this is to provide a foundation for people that is not familiar with the framework maybe, or who is starting and they want to have a good start with the best practices on doing all the stuff. Okay. So I will be running through several examples, several do-it-yourself slides where I will ask you to do something and then I will do it and we will compare results. If you have any question while doing it, you can stop, ask me whatever. I prefer you to stop me, whatever question you have, instead of leaving that for later. 3 hours are going to run fast, so I'll try to be fast as well. If you feel I'm too slow or I'm too fast or whatever, just let me know. I will try to push things forward a bit. Is there anyone here who is almost new to the framework? Hey. Okay, so everybody here has like some degree of experience with CakePHP 2 or 3. So I'll try to go through the basic things faster so we can get into more interesting topics quick. Okay. Well, everybody has. Okay, everybody has. The links to the code. You will identify on top right some tags, a tag name. You can check the slide with the tag name in GitHub. I try to be very verbose on things while doing stuff, just in case you need to follow from the beginning. And also, there is a database DAM that we are going to use, and the slides itself, if you go there. The slides are for today, so I will be updating the slides later tonight, and the contents for the session tomorrow based on your feedback today, and also where are we at the end. So we're gonna break in 3 hours, I guess. No, sorry, 10:30. Okay, we're gonna break at 10. Hey, we're gonna break at 10:30, so we can have something to eat or drink if you like, coffee, etc. Okay, so first thing is, everybody here has a development environment already set up. Anyone has not a development environment? I guess you don't have a development environment set up yet? Okay, you're on it. Okay. Well, today the basic requirements we have is to have PHP on all the required extensions for CakePHP. So we are not gonna go through setting up a web server or PHP FVM or anything like that. We're just gonna use the local PHP server so we can start quick and have everything set up as soon as possible. Another option is to use Vagrant. I don't know if you're familiar with the tool, possibly yes. It is a way to have your own or a manager for virtual machines locally. So I put some instructions on the next slide in case you want to set up a brand new development environment without touching your current environment in your box. And then, well, on your own, possibly you already have your own setup for development environment, so feel free to use it. This is kind of the setup I was playing with to use Vagrant if you're interested. For example, if you are not in PHP 7 yet and you want to test it, you could just do it this way. Download a Ubuntu 16 version, set up a couple packages, basically the PHP, and the required extensions, MBString and Intel for CakePHP. Well, you will be possibly need as well a MySQL server, so you can set up that as well too. And Vagrant will share your current folder with the /Vagrant folder in the guest machine. So you can basically work with your own IDE or your own code editor or the way you like. If you use VI, you don't need this. And you can then set up some port forwarding for accessing the server that will be located in that port, 8765. That is the default Cake server port when you start the server using the console. And it's also a good idea to share or to forward the MySQL port in case you want to access MySQL from your host environment, so you don't need to SSH or configure MySQL in any way. Okay, good. So if you need to download anything like a Vagrant box, you can start right now because it will take some minutes. Meanwhile, you could do Composer create project, CakePHP app as well, in case you need to download some dependencies. Possibly you already have that cached locally, but if you need, just go ahead and download it. Anyone here not familiar with Composer? Never used Composer before? Or almost not familiar? Okay, 3, 4, okay. Well, CakePHP relies on Composer for both installing his own dependencies and also let you know configure and use your own plugins and dependencies and configure your project as well. Basically, Composer is a way for you to manage all the dependencies per project and also update and keep restrictions on the packages you're using in your project. So you could define, for example, I want to use version 1 of this package, but I don't want to update automatically this package, so it's going to break backward compatibility. So I'm going to define, I'm going to use 1.0, the latest version in this package. Or you could use a tilde operator to express, hey, I want to update up to some version. Like, for example, tilde 132 would start in 132 and go up to version just behind 1.4. So you guarantee that you're not going to break your code. Obviously, this is up to the developer who is doing the plugin. If he's not doing right, he's going to break your code anyways. So, but if they follow Semver and they care about what they do, they will try to not break backward compatibility if releasing a minor or a patch version of the plugin or the package. Then about the management, there are two special files, composer.json, composer.log. The good practice is to add composer, obviously composer.json, but also composer.log to your client or project, not to the plugin you're releasing, because you don't need that, but yes, to fix the specific versions you're using for running your project. So you can share the specific versions you are using with the rest of the team, and there are no minor discrepancies between one and other team member while downloading project. Then you have Composer install that will follow the log file, and you have Composer update that will ignore the log file and go back to composer.json and retrieve the latest available versions defined in composer.json. So it is a common scenario that you download a project, you use Composer update, and you see a lot of dependencies going up, and some of the features broken because, well, is better. I don't know. I see people smiling, so I understand you know what I mean. So it's better to stick to whatever is working. That you guarantee that the tests are passing, and you have and you have that already tested. So Composer install is much safer, and obviously Composer update on development branch when you already have QA and testing in front of you. The last thing about Composer is all the packages are stored or centralized in packages.org. You can add your own repositories if you have a repository or private repositories for your company or whatever. You can add a source to composer.json, and if you have the right permissions to bring the package, there is not a problem. Okay. The last thing is CakePHP also relies on Composer for auto-loading of the classes. So if you put the files on the right places and you let Composer manage the auto-loading when you use the class, Composer will be able to locate the file and include it for you. So you don't need to worry about having different ways for managing those dependencies in your code, which is cool. So we're going to use Composer to bake a new project using CakePHP, and we're going to use it like this. Composer, create project, CakePHP app CakeFest. So when you run Composer, create. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's better. See, when you run Composer for the first time, you will clone the cakephp/app project. After cloning the project, you will run Composer install for the composer.json file of the project, of the skeleton, and downloading all the dependencies for the CakePHP framework and your application. And then after that, there is a little file under the application skeleton that will handle some tweaks on the configuration. If you say yes here, you see that it is going to handle setting the permissions in all those files and updating the security salt there. Okay. If you are curious about this file, it is here in source console installer. Okay, this is basically a file. Well, you could use this file as well if you want to set up your own application skeletons. Maybe your company has a specific set of packages you want to use, or you just want to do the same things every time you set up a new project. You could tweak this file and upload a modified application skeleton for your company. So all these little things that you need to do, like configuring a database or well, managing the permission is already done. But if you have other configuration steps that you always do, maybe it's a good idea to tweak this file, create your own application skeleton, so every time you create a new application from scratch, you're just having all those already done, which is always better. Great. So now we have an application skeleton built. If we take a look at it here, we can then use the Cake shell to start a development server. So the CakePHP provides the bean cake that is the entry point for running any of the shells provided by the CakePHP framework itself or your own shells. You can use CakePHP also as a foundation or a framework for building shell applications. If you need to to do specific tasks on your projects that are not related with a request, or worker actions or heavy loads that you need to run outside of the scope of a request, maybe a shell could be a good option for you. And using Beancake, one of the provided shells is the server shell. Basically, it will run a PHP server on localhost and that port by default. So we don't need to configure the web server or any other, for example, PHP, the FPM in this case, to run the PHP application. Just start a server and we're done. So console cake, bean. Sorry, too much versions. Yeah, so here's the console. Well, it will give some basic information about the folder you are in, the PHP version, some important paths for the application, and then all the available shells. As long as you add the plugins to the bootstrap file and you have additional shells, it will be listed there under the plugin name. And also, if you in your application, it will be listed there as application shells. We're going to use this one that is part of the core. So we just need to do bin cake server. And we're done, okay? So here we have this running for us. Okay, well, it's a blank welcome page for CakePHP.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so everybody got to this point? Yeah?
I got a problem.
Yeah? What problem?
I had a Vagrant installed already,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't been able to follow what you've got. I've got an install here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm stuck here.
But you already have the application. Oh, this is the slides, or
No, this is me.
okay, then that's fine.
But it's a different one though. It's
Yeah, no problem.
okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody got to this page and start a server. Usually the problems you could have is not having the PHP extensions or some PHP extensions installed, wrong version of PHP, missing the board already used for any other process or any other server already started, things like that. Okay, it's not a big deal, and it's much easier, at least for today, for the workshops to do it this way. Obviously, this is not intended for production. Okay, if you wanna play with fire, you can use that on production, but I would not recommend that. Okay, this is not gonna scale at all. Okay, so we get there. The folder structure, if you're coming from 2.0, you will see big changes on the way the code is structured. We have an SRC folder, we have all the composer files, we have the vendor folder that is new, we have the logs out of the TMP folder from 2.0, and basically it provides a way to keep temp and log folders in different places, and also to organize the downloaded libraries or packages from Composer into the vendor. This is the standard configuration for Composer, not anything CakePHP related. Then a couple changes you can see under the model folder. We have an entity and table because this is broken now. We will go over it in the ORM when we talk about the model layer. And there is a new folder template. Remember in 2.0 we had view for storing the templates, and now we have a template folder for the templates and a view folder for the view classes and helpers and everything. Okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is quickly go over the configuration and then tweak one thing in the configuration that maybe is useful for you. Let's go quickly over the app configuration file and the Bootstrap configuration file. The rest of the file paths, autoload, Bootstrap. Bootstrap CLI is going to be used when you use the framework through the console. So you can add there extra configuration, for example, defining your host name. That is something usually necessary because you don't have an environment provided by the web server, so you don't know the server name where you are in. So if you're gonna, for example, if you're gonna generate a link, it makes sense to let the framework know what the URL should be. So it's a good thing to have that separated because you could configure the server name in the file and it is being loaded only when you use a CLI. Then you have the routes file where you configure all the routes that match a given URL with a set of params, like the controller, the action, extra params, etc. Let's go quickly over the app.php. I'm gonna do it this way. Oops. Okay. So, well, the app.php is usually not. Let me change this a bit. Please let me know if the font works better from the end of the room. This, can you read this? A little bit more? Like that? Okay. Make more room for it. Oh. Like this. Okay. So, well, we have some basic paths for the application. We're configuring a security salt that we are going to use to hash or salt hash some things in the application, like, for example, maybe passwords. We have the asset configuration. If we set the asset timestamp to true, we will generate a timestamp number based on the last time a file was modified, which is cool for development, so you don't need to reload or you ensure that if the CSS or JavaScript file is not working, it's not because of the cache of the browser. This is useful sometimes for development. Then we have the cache configuration. We have a default cache. If in case we want to use it, we have some cache configurations for the framework itself, the core and the model. A note about caching this, using file for cache could be a bottleneck in some way. If you have a server with a lot of traffic, keep in mind we should try to restrict accessing the file system, because the file system becomes a bottleneck pretty quick. So for production, maybe makes sense to think about any other caching engine like Memcache or Redis. We're going to do an example later about setting up Redis for session sharing between servers, which is something very common if you have several nodes for the front end and you want to share the sessions between them. You don't want to have a sticky load balancer or something like that. You can just use Redis or any other engine to share the session across all of them. Then we have some error configuration. The email configuration is split in two. The transport, in the email itself, we could configure several different transports. For sanity and just in case, I always do this, like the first thing on the project, because we don't want to send real emails to real people. If we get a real dump in a real application and we click through it, we'll maybe sending emails to somewhere, and we don't want that. Then we have the email configuration itself, where we set the transport and other options. We could optionally do log through here. And by default, the emails will be logged to the debug log, so we can have a reference of whatever. We're going to configure the email later to use an external service so we can debug how the emails are sent. Because today we're going to work on a newsletter plugin, so we're going to send emails, and we need to know if the emails are right, if they look good, etc. Then we have the data source configuration. We're going to cover this later. The test data source configuration, some log configuration. The log is powerful. We have two log configurations now, and we will add a new one later to log subscriptions of users into. Yeah?
I have a question.
Yeah.
With multiple collections and test environments. How is what is the best practice?
So the question is having multiple databases or
And tests.
and test environments. Okay, well, depending on and you mean and you're gonna use.
I would like to know the best way, the best practice.
Okay.
To achieve this with Cake.
Well, I don't know the best practice. I've seen several ways to manage that. For example, depending on the server name, I see people that is switching to one or another depending on the server name where you are configured. But I think maybe the best option or the best practice, I don't know if the best practice, but for me, my option would be using an environment variable. So based on the environment variable, you will configure the test and the real or the database and the test database. Based on that, we can switch that. We can remove that part of the configuration from the app.php, move it to a separate file, for example, and switch based on the configuration and load one file or the other.
When there are no possibilities to set up PHP unique global variable.
When are no possibilities? I mean, it should be. We should always have the ability to set up an environment variable, either using the web server. We can pass the environment variable through the web server, or, for example, using one of the plugins. I think there is a reference in the book in this chapter to Jose Gonzalez .env plugin that will let you know to use different .env and environment files in your project in case you want to define a file. Anyways, if you take a look at the configuration, you will see this every place. So this is a way to override the configuration that is stored in the file. You just need to configure the correct URL in the environment variable. So you don't even need to touch the file at all. You just need to put the environment correctly. And then if you have, for example, if you have 3 nodes, the first node use database A, test database. Well, the test database should be empty, right? Because you will generate the fixtures there or whatever. So maybe the test database, I don't know if it is something, if it should be a target for switching. Maybe the switching is more related with the database itself. Yeah.
As an example, plugin development and Postgres and MySQL testing.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Exactly. Yeah, and that's pretty. That's a pretty good example. If you wanna, for example, run the tests against several different database engines. So you could have an environment with Postgres, an environment with MySQL, and you could have an environment with Oracle as well, and run the tests against your Oracle database. So, okay. And then the session configuration that is using the PHP defaults. We're going to change this. So, yeah, let's do a simple tweak on the configuration. We're going to set up Redis, and we're going to configure Redis as a session handle for our server. Keep in mind, the session is important for scalability because you hit the file system twice per request. If you have a session, you need to read a session and you need to write a session. That is 2 hits to the file system. If you have a lot of requests per second, multiplied by 2 number of hits to the file system. So it's better to move the sessions out of the file system sooner than later if you have a lot of requests. Another cool thing about CakePHP 3 is if you don't use the session, you will not start a session. So CakePHP will start a session when you first access anything related with a session, like, for example, Flash or session write or whatever. Okay, but for example, if in your home page you don't have flash messages, you don't write anything on the session or read it, you will not start a session for your homepage, which is good for for performance, because if you don't need, if you're not going to use a session, why start one? Okay, you don't need to set up this specifically so you don't want to start a session. It will do it automatically. So yeah, well, Redis server. I have Redis server already installed. Let me minimize this and get this here. So sudo server. Okay, so Redis, Redos. CLI, okay, there is a Redis. Oh, I will do that. And yeah, so we have a Redis server installed. Next thing is, let's change the Cake PHP configuration so the sessions are going to be stored in Redis instead of in the file system. Okay.
If you're running on a Windows, you can skip this, or
you can skip this. Yeah. No, it's not necessary for the session today. Just as an example.
My question: if you're running multiple front servers behind node balancer, does it work? Basically, is this Redis per machine, or can be shared?
Yes, it can be shared. Usually, what I would say is to have a Redis server that is going to be also set up as high availability with 3 nodes. In case one of the nodes goes down, you can detect that and launch a new node. The 3 nodes will share kind of the same information. And then this cluster, you could put this cluster behind your load balancer. So it is only shared with your 3 or X number of web servers. So it is very important that to mention that Redis is not configured by default for security. So you need to provide the security for it. If you put Redis open to the world, you're going to get hacked. Okay? And it's a very simple script to inject some garbage into your authorized keys file. This is something that could be done very easily using Redis. So the default Redis configuration is binding the Redis server to the local host only, and is open to do anything. Okay? Good. So yeah, let's tweak that. What we're gonna do is, I'm gonna change the cache configuration here. Okay, so the first thing is we're gonna change this to cache, and we're gonna define a handler. And we're going to define the handler as the config name of the cache will be session. Okay. And then we can copy this session configuration for the cache and add it here to the list of the caching configurations. Like that. Okay, so we're gonna create a new configuration for a cache. We're gonna use Redis. We're gonna add this prefix to anything we put here on the cache. We're gonna put 60 minutes duration or whatever the session duration is for you. And well, the URL, we created one, but this is not needed. So now if we go here and do Redis, monitor. Okay, you see monitor, it will print in the screen whatever happens on this Redis server, which is super slow, so don't do it unless in development. And we can go back to our site here, reload it, and nothing happens, as expected. Okay? Yep.
I just missed the last.
Yeah.
Those bits.
Well, let's take a look.
So I got to there.
Okay. Yeah, the handler, the config. Oh, let me put the code so you can follow it. You know, you have the slides available as well,
I've got the slide here.
and also the code, so you will be able to see that if you want to follow. But here's the code, anyways. Okay. In the handler, you pass the configuration, and you put the session as the name of the cache you're going to use. You could use a file cache, but has no sense at all. So, okay, nothing happens as expected because we're not using a session, no use in sessions, nothing is written. What if we change this page? Well, let's do it real quick. This is the home page. Well, this is the intro page that you get when you first set up this app skeleton. If we go here, any place, and do this request.
You need to zoom.
Yeah, sorry. Something like that. So this request session, right. Something. Value. Okay, if we add this, then reload the page. Sorry. And we see that yes, there is a session, so we need to try to get it. If not found, we write it, and the session is there. Okay.
What did you change to get to not see the null object round? I just didn't. It wasn't fast.
Okay. The thing is, if you don't write or use a session, you're not gonna use Redis for storing the session. So we need to do something on the homepage to write the session there. What's this? Okay. So now, well, this is a stupid example, but maybe funny. If we run another server here, main cake server. Oh, sorry. Like that, okay? And we go to this page. You will see the session ID is the same, right? So we are sharing the same session in two different servers, in two different ports. Okay, so one server could be in one server. I mean, the first server could be in one node, the second server could be in another node, and you're sharing the session between them. So it doesn't matter what server you hit, you have the same session, the same login, the same information at the same point. Okay. We could use Nginx to load balance that, but it has totally no sense, as you could probably know. Good. Okay, so going back to our original server, let's leave it here and continue with the session. So the next thing we're gonna do, I'm gonna let you 5 minutes to do it, is to configure the email for the application. I'm gonna use this service, debugmail.io, that is like a mail catcher. It's a web application that you can see the message that are being sent. Is a very stupid service, but very, very useful. If you want, you can set up some local servers like this one, like Mailcatcher or anything else you like for debugging emails. This is usually a good idea. And you could also use the debug transport, as I already did. So you don't send emails at all. When you call email send, you will not send the email. You will just return the email that would be sent in any case. And then you can log it. Debugging the emails in the log is very, it's not funny because you don't see the real results if it is an HTML email and so on. So I'll let you 1 minute to configure. You can create an account if you want in debug mail. It's free. And then configure your email in your app.php. And I usually create one shell for testing emails quick, like this one. You can create that shell as well, okay? So we're gonna do 2 things, well, 3 things. Register in debug mail.io, that is optional. You can do it or not. Then we're gonna configure SMTP for your email transport. And the third thing is we're gonna bake a new shell and add a test send method to send a test email to one specific address. Okay? 3 things. Yep. I'll leave you 2 minutes, okay? And then I will continue.
I was trying to add the session bit of the Redis to the app config.
The class name is wrong. Should be Redis with capital R and one D. Like that. Unsupported operand types. That's another thing. In Bootstrap. Line.
I was looking at the Apache.
Yeah.
Oh, it says the same line on the 7 over there. The error handling.
Yeah.
But it should be something wrong in the.
Yeah, I don't know what. Do you have PHP Redis extension installed? You can do that with php-e-i and grep Redis with capital R.
Oh.
Yeah. That's
No.
okay. So you need to install PHP Redis. Sudo
Okay. Sudo
apt-get install php-redis.
Oh, is it with a couple?
No. Which PHP version you have?
5.
Okay. Then PHP 5-Redis. Yeah. Okay. For the Redis, well, possibly is that. If not, just let me know. We can debug it later. And for the Redis example, keep in mind you will need to have the Redis extension in PHP.
Can you show the Redis configuration again?
Yeah. This one or the other?
Yeah. No, the cache one. You didn't configure the server or port?
Doesn't matter. It will use localhost and default port. Yep. Good. So you have the email already configured? I'm going to do it quick here. Don't use my key.
For the red stuff before, despite that the modules, can you repeat what I have to do to see the PHP modules only because I installed
Okay,
them with
yeah.
apt-get, I installed them with apt-get and it doesn't
Well-
show any, it doesn't show this.
Okay. I usually, we have two servers? Where? Why? Okay, this is the good one, and this is the bad one. Okay. So, PHP. I usually do that to check if the extension is loaded.
What troubles me the most in this case is that there's no error. Okay.
It could be memcache as well. If you have memcache installed and you prefer to use that instead of Redis, that could be an option too. Any in-memory storage will work fine for sessions and sharing. Cool. Please let me know if you have any other questions. About the email transport, well, I'm doing it like that. So from now on, all the emails will be sent to there. And so if we go here, debug mail. This is what we get. I have this. The priority is empty, but we will get the emails there when the emails are sent. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to use CakePHP framework to bake a new shell class that we're going to use for a little test, like a delivery test, so we can check that the emails are being sent. This is something I usually have in all the applications related with emails, because you never know if the emails are sent or not until it's too late. So it's good after deployment or whatever. I usually send a test email to check that all the email configuration, if the email is critical, like here's your payment or here's your ticket or whatever, it's good to test the email when you deploy, so you ensure that no one changed the email password in the third-party service or whatever. That something sometimes it happens. Okay, so let's bake it real quick. Console bean. cake bake shell email. Okay, we're baking a new email shell at the application level. So now we can take a look at this file, and under source shell email shell we have an empty file. Oh, I need to fix that once and for all. Yeah, I'm gonna fix it once and for all. Because editor, colors and fonts. You remember where is that? General. Well, no problem. Doesn't matter. Okay. Cool. So we have a main method that we are not going to use. We are just going to create a new test method, and we are going to use the email deliver function. That is a very, very quick way to send an email without too much hassle. Okay, so we're going to deliver an email to me@example.com with a test subject and a test body, and we're going to use the default email configuration. Okay? This default is important because if you don't set it, you will use the fast configuration. And we don't have a fast configuration, so default is important. We will deliver the email, and then let's run this new shell, bean cake. You see we have a new email here that we can use now. So bean cake email test. Something happened. We go here. We get this. Okay. Sorry?
What have you executed after adding the function?
I can barely hear you. Can you repeat that, please?
What have you executed in the last step to send out the mail after adding the test function?
Okay, let me show you. You mean the console command?
Yeah.
That's one. You run bin cake, then the name of the shell. In this case, the name of the shell is the email shell, and then the name of the function inside the shell, that is test. Okay. Let's get crazy and send it again. Well, we are debugging the output we get with all the headers and stuff, but this is very hard to debug, so we use this instead. Yeah? Yeah? Actual email? Uh-huh. Okay, do you want me to repeat the bake thing so you can? Okay. Okay. Keep in mind that we have this here as well for you to follow in case you lost some piece of it. So releases. Like here. Okay, you get all the stuff here in case you want to follow, like the shell and everything. Okay, so you can just copy that from there.
How do I test the email?
Yeah, you need to run once you have the shell created and you have the deliver method in it. You can then use the console like this. To send the email, like that. If you created the shell, you should be able to see it there, listed under the app shells. You get something there? Oh, red things.
I've got this and this.
Yeah, you need to include the email class. You need to go and remember to use the class, because if not, it's gonna break. This is PHP Storm or not?
No,
It's an editor. Okay. Do you have the ability to import the class? You remember to add this on top of the file. Okay. Sorry, I did that quick because I never remember where the classes are located, so I let the IDE do it for me. I never remember anything, so I let others do it for me. And this way, every time you use any class, because we have namespaces in Cake 3, remember to add the use on top. I think this is my number one reason to fail when I do this things for the first time. But well. You can out import from PHP Storm or NetBeans or any other IDE. You just need to click and you get all the uses on top of the file, so you don't need to remember. Okay. Good. You got it working? Not yet?
I think I didn't get stuff right in the.
Oh yeah. Look, send mail. This is another error. Send mail is not working. So you need to configure your email provider. If you go to your app.php.
So I didn't do.
Yeah, this is the problem. You're trying to use mail on localhost. You don't have a server on localhost.
Yeah.
So I would say.
Send it to Gmail or something.
Yeah, well, you could configure Gmail if you want, or you could use debug mail as I did. That is very quick.
I need an account. So
Yeah, you need an account, or just put debug there on mail.
Right, sure.
Instead of class name mail, use class name debug. Yeah, like that. And because you're using log true, you will see the email in the debug.log file. It should work now. Yep. You're welcome. Good. So we have emails. Nice. Newsletter plugin. We're gonna build a newsletter plugin with mailing lists, templates. The templates will have variables, so we can mail merge the templates with the users and say, hi, John, and things like that. Then we are going to translate the templates into different languages. So each user will have a different locale, and based on the user's locale, we will use the mail template in his own language or his preferred language. So we will be able to deliver the content in the user's language. I try to introduce something really with multi-language in this basic workshop, because I understand everybody here could be interested in having applications in different languages, which is what it is here in this country. So we're gonna build the public CRUD very easily using the bake shell. We're gonna create the multi-language templates, and we're gonna create a method to compose the campaign. So we will be able to have a campaign with multiple mailing lists. Each mailing list will have multiple users. We'll wrap all the users of the campaign, send all the emails in the compose method. Also, we are gonna do it wrong, because we are gonna send the emails in the context of the request. This is something I left for the advanced workshop, to refactor this. That is obviously a bad idea, and move it to an external worker where we can have a queue of messages and use that queue for sending the messages in an appropriate way. So it is wrong, okay? I'm telling you from the beginning. Okay, so the first thing is we're gonna bake a new plugin, newsletter. Let's do it. Bean, cake, bake, plugin, newsletter. Okay, bunch of files. Yes to everything. So we just created a new folder, newsletter, here. Under plugins, newsletter. Okay. This is usually the first step when you are preparing a new plugin that you're going to distribute to others. You usually create some fake or mock application on top of it. Then you bake the plugins, and then you wrap the plugin and move it to Composer in a separate repo once you're fine with it. And then you reinstall the plugin again in the application. Well, that's what I do as well. Cool. So we have a newsletter plugin. We have some configuration and routes. We have some app controller. We have some empty web root and a new composer.json file defining, for example, one important thing that is the namespace for it that will be newsletter. And where are the files located, and requirements, things like that. Cool. So the next thing we're gonna do is note that the plugin load also is adding plugin load. Sorry, the bake shell is also adding plugin load at the end of our bootstrap file. Okay, that is something that we need to tweak, because sometimes we want to configure the plugin, or we want to change the way the plugin is loaded. So if we take a quick look at the bootstrap file here, we should get at the end something like this. Okay, when we define and load a new plugin in Bootstrap, we can also set if we want to use the plugin's bootstrap.php file and the plugin's routes.php file. By default, there are routes associated to the plugin, defining the path where the plugin routes will depend. Okay, this is the only configuration we have for the plugin right now. We are loading the routes for this plugin, and we are not loading the bootstrap file yet. So if you take a look at the routes configuration, I'm not gonna get into routes too much, because I don't think we have the time on the scope of the basic workshop. But if you take a look here, you see this is the path where the rest of the I mean, we are using router plugin to hook all the paths below newsletter and pass it to the route, the controllers under the plugin. Okay, and we're using a dashed route as default. Well, we can talk about that later, or if you're very, very interested, we can discuss about adding routing as an extra ball for tomorrow. So, okay, we have a plugin now. And we need some kind of schema. You can import the schema this way. If you are super lazy and you don't want to touch the configuration file, you can do that, the first thing, which is super insecure and super bad, but you don't need to touch the configuration file. If you want to do it easier, you can just create a new database newsletter like this, and create a new or grant all the privileges to everything on my app. This is something I usually do on my development environment, because my app and secret is a default user and password that comes in the application skeleton. So I grant to everyone, so I don't need to do it each time I download a new project, which is bad, but it's my development environment, and I use it as I want. So then this URL here is not going to hack your computer. It's something that just relies on a very simple schema that I will show you next. This schema here, where we have users. They are not logging users. I mean, we are not going to use the users table for logging in yet. We can do that tomorrow if you want. We have campaigns, and we have templates, and we have mailing lists. Okay? So a user can be subscribed to many mailing lists, and each mailing list could be associated with many campaigns. So I can create a campaign that will send emails to 3 different mailing lists, and each mailing list will have any amount of users. And then we have the templates. The templates will have a subject and a body, basically for composing the email, and there could be variables there inside. We're going to create a syntax for the variables and then replace the variables. So, and there are a logs table where we can just write whatever is happening really with the emails. So if you take a look at the database schema, we're following the CakePHP conventions. The tables, or the main tables, they have an ID field that is the primary key, that is the default name that CakePHP will use for the primary key. In this case, we picked autonumeric integer fields for column type for the ID. Then we have, for the association tables, we have the name of the tables in plural, following the conventions, and underscored. The IDs or associations between the tables are marked with a singular form, underscore ID. We have a couple magic, not so magic fields, like created and modified. We created a status here as a text, so we can define the status of a campaign, like new, in progress, or completed, things like that. And that's it. Basically, following the conventions in the names of the tables, plural underscore, the ID field, and the association between the tables. There are 2 association tables, campaigns, mailing lists, which is joining the mailing lists and the campaigns, and also mailing list users. which is joining the users and the campaign and the mailing lists. Yep. You just need to put the names of the tables and the score and the other table, and it will be recognized as the merge table between those two. Good. Any questions so far? No. So bake a CRUD. We're gonna bake a CRUD for all that we can see there, and then we're gonna build on top of that. So this command here, bake all, everything, dash plugin newsletter, will go to the database, read all the tables, and generate the controllers, templates, and model classes, the table and the entity, for each table we just generated there. Okay, so if we go here and do main, cake, bake, all, everything.
Sorry,
Yep.
before you bake, where is this data to be found? The table?
The schema.
Yeah, the
It is the you should have an email with the schema. I think Megan sent you all an email. There are three things: the slides, the code, and the database schema. There is some dummy data there as well. Test data, not only the schema, but also some test data. You found it? Okay. Cool. So, well, you can use phpMyAdmin or any other tool if you don't like to use the command line. Doesn't matter. Just you can import it once you have the schema imported. You can run bake all. If we use a -p, all the classes will be created under the plugin context. This is what we want, basically, because we don't want to populate. Keep in mind, we have two things. We have a shell or a dummy application, and then we are building a plugin with all the features we want. So we want to put all the code we generate inside the plugin, not inside the application. Okay. So bake all the things. And now we have some classes more here added. Campaigns. Well, all this. Okay. Okay, so we will have a break soon. It will be a short one, like 10-15 minutes. There are lots of stuff here to eat and whatever you need, coffee, etc. And yeah, 15 minutes. Not now. In 5 minutes, I guess. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. So, did you bake everything there? No. You were not able to. What's the problem? Lots of problems.
I'm kind of behind. I was so I have to load the plugin.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You should not need to add this because did you bake the plugin?
Let's see.
No. You should run always cake from the folder.
Yeah.
Yeah, from that one. So bean cake, bake, plugin, newsletter.
Yes.
Yeah. Already exists.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that I already did. Okay.
You possibly need to delete it.
So
rm-rf. Well, all this folder, all the newsletter.
Maybe I have to.
Yeah, delete this one.
This one?
No, that one. Everything. And now bake again. That one.
Wait, I think I have to.
Why?
So. And
No, but it was not. Was not generated. He should ask you for. Try to delete it from there. Is that the same folder?
Yes.
CakeFest.dev.
Yes. Where should it?
Do cd plugins, yeah, and remove rm-rf newsletters.
Now big again.
And big again, yeah. That's another thing, yeah. Yes, all, yes, everything. And you should have a plugin load now there on your Bootstrap file.
Okay, so it should be in. So this,
At the end. Dollar. Yep, there it is. I don't know why it's not reflected there. Possibly you need to reload that, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Problems? Okay.
It has some problems with current timestamp online. You have the same one. Right?
Only one timestamp with current timestamp is default. Wow.
Did you see it?
No,
Before?
never
No.
happened to me. What version of database you have? Maybe. Dash version, I think. MySQL dash version. That is MariaDB, maybe, or no, 5.5. Well, I use 5.7. I don't know if that's the difference, but you can remove the timestamp thing in the schema. I'll take a look. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? You get there to generate the plugin and have all the plugin classes and everything there inside, hopefully. You got something? Okay. Good. So we have a lot of classes here. Basically, well, the baked controllers, the baked entities for all the tables, and the baked tables for all the tables. Then we have templates for all the controllers generated for the add, edit, index, and view. Obviously, delete does not need a template. And that's what Bake just generated for us. So we have a working CRUD application right now, or we should have, that is here, located under newsletter. For example, campaigns, like this, okay? So you can, well, do whatever you, it's a standard CRUD application. I'm not gonna stop too much here because you already know, okay? So, unless you have questions. Question? Yep.
Yes. When we define migration files
Mm-hmm.
for a plugin, and then we bake based on migrations, and afterwards, when we, for example, change one more color, then we would or had to rebake everything. But when we already defined a controller flash messages, exceptional function, etc., etc., is there a way to merge the new color into the model or the entity without killing the created code?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Well, you could do it. Obviously, you could do a trick on Git, for example, to keep the current version, rebake, get the diff, and apply the diff. That could be one trick. Or if you are planning to have a CRUD that is going to change a lot, maybe you should be thinking about some kind of plugin, like the CRUD plugin, for example, so you can manage that CRUD using a configuration instead of baking files. Okay, we're not covering CRUD plugin or alternatives today. We're trying to stick to something that is simple and accessible for everyone. So, but if you are thinking about doing an initial CRUD, and then you will have a lot of modifications, and you want to add those modifications to your CRUD, then it's good to think about any plugin solution, so you dynamically create the CRUDs and you don't bake the files with real. But if you just need a quick around, you can use Git and apply the diff between both versions. Okay, so break time. Let's get back in 10, 15 minutes, okay, and continue. Yep, yep. Still there?